The Battle of Winterfell. Prologue. The long night returns. The world held its breath as the dead marched south. Across the frozen wastes of the north, the army of the Night King moved like a tide of frost and silence. 4 years, the living had doubted. For years, stories of the others had been dismissed as ancient fables whispered by old women near the hearth. But now the truth stood at their gates, death incarnate, clothed in ice and shadow. The long night was no longer legend. It was a dawnless reality. Winterfell, the ancestral seat of House Stark, became the fortress of last hope. Beneath its ancient walls gathered not only the North's hardy warriors but also Southerners, exiles, free folk, knights of the Vale, even dragons. Old grudges dissolved in the face of annihilation. Every banner, every sword that could still be raised against the dead now flew under one desperate cause: survival. Chapter 1. The Mustering of the Living. Winterfell had never seen such a congregation of armies. Jon Snow, no longer just the bastard of Winterfell but the king in the north, rode among the lines of men and women preparing for the greatest battle of their lives. Beside him rode Daenerys Targaryen, breaker of chains and mother of dragons, her silver hair glinting against the gray sky. Her unsullied stood in disciplined ranks at the outer walls, spears bristling like a sea of iron. Behind them the Dothraki riders, restless as caged predators, shifted on their horses. The free folk, led by Tormund Giantsbane, lined the ramparts, their crude weapons glinting with frost. Knights of the Vale polished their steel and prayed to gods they had never spoken to before. Each contingent brought its own history, its own pain. Some were allies by necessity, not trust. Yet the cold rising from the north forced unity. Plans were drawn in the Great Hall, voices clashing over strategies, Ser Davos advising caution, Tyrion Lannister offering cunning ploys, Jon urging the defense of Bran Stark, the Night King's target. The young boy who once climbed the towers of Winterfell now sat in his wheelchair at the heart of every plan, the living bait for the Lord of Death. Chapter 2. The Eve of Battle. Night fell early, though the sky was not yet fully dark. It was as if the shadows of the approaching army had dimmed the sun. Fires were lit along the battlements. Blacksmiths hammered the last of the dragonglass into spearheads, arrowheads, and blades. Samwell Tarly, clutching a weapon he barely knew how to wield, whispered prayers under his breath. Arya Stark stalked the courtyards like a phantom, her new dragonglass spear balanced in her hands. Brienne of Tarth and Jaime Lannister drilled the lines of infantry, trying to forge discipline out of terror. In the Godswood, Bran waited, eyes distant, already reaching into the past and future as the three-eyed raven. Ghost padded silently at his side. The air was so cold it felt alive, biting at the lungs, freezing every exhale into mist. Yet beneath the fear burned a strange sense of unity. House Stark, House Targaryen, the free folk, even House Mormont's young Lady Lyanna all prepared to die side by side. Chapter 3. The Night King Comes. Then the horns blew. 3 long blasts. Silence fell. Across the snowy fields beyond Winterfell's walls, a black line moved. It was not truly black but pale, a mass of corpses, bones, and ice, stretching from horizon to horizon. The army of the dead had arrived. First came the whites, endless and faceless. Behind them rode the White Walkers on their pale horses, their eyes twin shards of blue flame. And somewhere above, unseen but felt in every heart, the Night King rode his undead dragon, Viserion, wings dripping with frost. Dothraki riders surged forward first, flaming rocks lighting the darkness like a sea of falling stars. For a heartbeat, hope flared. Then, as their lights winked out one by one in the distance, hope died. Screams carried back on the wind. Horses without riders fled past the lines. The living tightened their grip on their weapons. The battle had begun. Chapter 4. Fire and Blood in the Dark. Daenerys and Jon leapt onto their dragons, Drogon and Rhaegal, taking to the sky. Below, the Unsullied braced the first impact. The Whites crashed into their shields like a living avalanche. Flaming trenches were lit, casting an eerie orange glow across the snow. Yet even fire could not hold the dead forever. They hurled themselves into the flames, creating bridges of burning corpses for their brethren to cross. Arrows of dragonglass fell from the ramparts. Catapults hurled stones wrapped in pitch. But the dead were endless. Wave after wave climbed the walls, clawing and biting, ignoring wounds that would fell any living man. Brienne, Jaime, and Podrick fought shoulder to shoulder. Grey Worm called a retreat with perfect discipline, even as his soldiers were torn apart. Above, dragons collided in midair, their roars shaking the heavens. Regal and Viserion tore at each other in a frenzy of claws and ice breath. Jon clung to his dragon's back, vision blurred by snow and ash. Daenerys unleashed fire in great sweeps, Drogon's flames illuminating the night like a second sun. Entire ranks of the dead melted under the dragonfire, yet still they came. Chapter 5. The Last Stand in the Courtyard. Within the castle, chaos reigned. Arya darted through hallways, pursued by silent wights, her training with the faceless men keeping her alive. The Hound, momentarily paralyzed by fire, followed Beric Dondarrion into the dark to save her. Beric fell, his many lives finally spent. In the Godswood, Theon Greyjoy and his Ironborn held their ground around Bran, loosing arrow after arrow until their quivers were empty. The Night King descended, walking through their line as if through mist. Theon charged one last time and fell, his redemption sealed in blood. Jon, lost in the blizzard of battle, tried to reach Bran but was cut off by Viserion's undead fury. Daenerys landed Drogon to rescue survivors, but the dragon was overwhelmed by wights, forcing her to take flight alone. Jorah Mormont fought to his last breath at her side, protecting his queen until the end. Chapter 6. The End of the Long Night. Time blurred. Death was everywhere. Even the crypts of Winterfell erupted as ancient Stark dead rose under the Night King's power. For a moment, it seemed all was lost. Then Arya Stark emerged from the shadows. Silent as a whisper, quick as a blade of winter, she leapt at the Night King. His hand caught her by the throat. But in a move born of instinct and training, she dropped the dagger from one hand to the other and plunged the Valyrian steel into his heart. The Night King shattered into ice. His army collapsed like marionettes with their strings cut. The undead dragon fell from the sky in a storm of frost and wings. Silence returned to Winterfell, broken only by the sobs of the living. Epilogue. Dawn at Winterfell. When dawn finally came, it revealed a battlefield of ruin. Fires still smoldered. The snow was black with ash and red with blood. Of the thousands who had stood at Winterfell's walls, only a fraction survived. But they had survived. The long night was over. The price was terrible. Friends, comrades, even entire houses extinguished, but the living had endured. The war for the dawn had been won by the narrowest of blades. And as the sun rose over the battered castle, Jon Snow and Daenerys Targaryen stood apart, already sensing the bitter conflicts yet to come. But for that moment, there was only silence, and the warmth of a new day.